So there's a few key problems with the way companies are thinking about their ICP for ABM, and those can be, distilled into a few main categories. The first is that they're normally viewing their personas in much too generic of a fashion to be effectively used in an ABM campaign. So, oftentimes they're just outdated, maybe they're too rigid, and they just really haven't evolved to today's audiences. The second piece is that buying and decision-making teams are very complex, and the buying process has changed a lot. So think about the number of researchers or the number of people that may be involved in deciding whether or not a contract gets signed. Oftentimes people have a mindset that the person signing the contract is the only one you need to appeal to, and that is absolutely not the case. So I know, personally speaking, thinking about some of the purchase decisions, we make at the agency, I actually kick off those research processes, and then there's a number of other stakeholders involved that may involve, our analytics team, our tech team, things like that. And you ultimately have to appeal and get buy-in from all those people in order to win our business. And so, you need to view your clients in very much the same fashion. Think about any of those additional stakeholders. Is it an IT guy, a security analyst, a different C-suite title that maybe you haven't thought of that could have a huge say in determining whether or not you get that contract across the finish line. The next area is just that, oftentimes people hear things like developers or creatives or, tech titles, maybe HR, things like that. And they try to lump all these, audiences into one pool and really just try to treat them all with, one sort of messaging, things like that. But ultimately, if you think about a developer, for example, there are, a number of different types of developers, all of which have, unique skill sets, different pain points, different habits and needs. And so, as you're building out your ABM campaign, you really need to take a broader view to understand, hey, within the developer pool, I could have 5 different distinct audiences that I need to appeal to, all in a slightly different way in order to be effective. And the final piece, and I would say really the most important, is just also making sure that the kind of golden thread that connects all these things is data. So there's a variety of things that we generally look at and would recommend any effective ABM program begin with in terms of data sources. So looking at your first party data from sales and research, website data, Google Analytics, data from your existing social channels, platform and publisher data, and then of course third-party data. And then, if you're able to layer and weave those things together, you really can develop, compelling content and effective campaigns and media targeting to be able to get those prospects to move down the funnel and eventually become, purchasers of your product. So when you have a narrow ICP, you really have a precise set of guidelines that you can use to develop a more accurate customer journey, create more relevant content, and then you can also work a lot more closely with your publishing partners, platform partners, things like that, to be able to precisely target your ads and develop content that will resonate with those audiences. The other thing is thinking about a long-term effective program. When you're able to build out very clear audiences with very clear messaging and goals, that ultimately does set a better foundation for future optimization and testing, because you have much clearer swim lanes to be able to judge an A versus B against and things like that.